Good morning, good afternoon or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another instalment in the Sydney Railroad build. I've lost track of how many times I've said that, but we're actually getting pretty close to the end. If you're watching last time, you'll have seen me finish all the switch machines and the control and the wiring and all that good stuff. This week I'm going to get the fascia installed, and it does actually make quite a transformation in the finished appearance of the railroad. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and install some fascia. Today is Wednesday, November something, the 6th I think. Yesterday I finished switch machines in the main yard. Today my task is to continue with the fascia. I put a few pieces in a couple of weeks ago while I was waiting for wire. Now I'm going to continue. I'm just going to carry on where I left off at this point. First thing I've got to do is move all the turnout controls. They're just temporarily mounted. I'm going to just tape them to the back of the frame like that, so they're out of the way. Now I can install the fascia, and then when I've painted it, I can cut the holes and install the turnout controls permanently. Unlike the last few videos with the switch machines and the wiring, this is going to go a lot faster as far as visual improvement is concerned. So I'll probably talk to you more frequently than I have been. But for the time being, I'm just going to turn the camera off, cut some fascia and get started. Well, not much time has passed since I spoke to you, but I now have 3 7-foot lengths installed. I told you to go quickly. I haven't finished with these yet. I've still got to come back and put some bracing in. Unfortunately, the masonite was sitting in my workshop, leaned against the wall for too long, and it's got a slight curve on it, so I'm going to have to put some vertical braces in to hold that. What I'm going to do is wait till these clamps can come off, and then I'm going to put glue blocks in the back, clamp them vertically, and that will hold it at alignment, so it'll be nice and straight. I'm going to continue a little bit further along here. I've got a short piece to go in the corner, and then one more long piece, and then another short piece before I get to the other corner. So let me get on with that, and I'll talk to you again later. Well, that is 3 more pieces installed. Well, technically it's 4 more pieces, because I 2-pieced this one. I used up some offcuts instead of cutting a whole new strip. It doesn't make any difference on the fascia because all the imperfections just get spackled. That is all my clamps used up, so I'm going to go inside now, do something else for an hour, and then I'll come back out and continue. Well, actually I was inside for more like an hour and a half. I worked on a layout design for a bit. But I've now come out, I've removed most of the clamps. I'm going to leave these in the corner for a little bit longer, so that glue can have more time, just so that I don't risk the masonite springing away. I'm now going to work on the lower level directly below. That way all the clamps are already in the right place. So let me just get back to work. I'll talk to you again later. Well, that is the lower fascia, all the way from where I left off at the bridge last time, down to the start of the curve at the end of the room. That is 1 full sheet of masonite used up, and also a full bottle of glue. Before I continue cutting more fascia panels to go around this corner, I am going to finish what I've already done. As I mentioned earlier, I need bracing to hold this vertical all the way along this side, and also a little bit in that corner, because it wants to lean backwards. So I'll just need probably 2 braces down here and a lot more at the top. I'm going to start cutting those, and I will glue them on, clamp them in place with my 12-inch clamps, and just leave those setting up the rest of the day. Well, all this fascia along here is now nice and straight. It actually ended up taking a lot more bracing than I thought it was going to. If I'd realized how much bracing I was going to need, I wouldn't have used this masonite there. I would have gone to Lowe's and bought some more. It would probably have been quicker. I have 1 more of the curved sheets, so I'm just going to use that up in places where the fascia is lower and supported its full height. For example, along here where the main yard goes, and also on the other side of the room with the staging yards. So I've got plenty of places I can use that sheet up. And then I will buy new material to go in here and all other places that I need taller fascia. So I guess that means I can't continue along here today. Well, I could, but I'd have to go to Lowe's first, and it's kind of late in the day. So I'm just going to skip ahead and use up the other sheet that I already have anywhere that I can. Well, that is 4 more strips of fascia and most of my clamps. There are a couple of gaps. This gap here is for the bump out that will eventually support the passenger station, but I haven't built that yet, so I just left the gap for it. And then in this corner there is another gap. I'm not doing this piece of fascia yet because I've got to build a control panel for the engine terminal into it. So that one's going to take some more thought. It's still very early in the day, it's only just after 4 o'clock that I am out of clamps again. As I mentioned earlier, I cut 4 full-length strips of fascia. I cut 2 from each side of the panel because most of the curve was in the middle. I didn't want to use the middle bit because the top 3/4 of an inch of this is unsupported. I will finish up the rest of the sheet over this side of the room, along the edge of the lower staging yard and in front of the harbour, where the fascia will be supported for its full height. But I can't do that just yet because, as I mentioned just now, I am out of clamps. First thing I did this morning was to remove all the clamps. So now you can get a good look at yesterday's progress. Here are all the clamps that I pulled off down here. This morning I'm going to start by cutting some strips out of the remaining curved piece of plywood to start doing this side. And then once I've used up all my clamps, I'll go to Lowe's and buy some more masonite while the glue sets. Well, that's about as far as I can go for now. I ended up having to use a lot more clamps than I expected because with the non-standard framing for that lower level, I wasn't able to get the clamps in the middle. I had to put 2 rows top and bottom. But I did get halfway along. That's 3 sections done. I can do the other 3 when I get back. Well, I have now moved the clamps and finished the bottom edge, the subway staging, also known as Hades. And that fascia is now installed all the way along. I'm just going to go inside, take a break, let those clamps do their job, and then I'll come back out and start on the upper levels. Well, that is 6 more pieces of fascia installed, and this corner is now complete on all 3 levels. I'm just about out of clamps again, so I'm going to go work on something else while I leave this glue to set and the clamps to do their job. Well, I've given that glue about an hour or so to set up. I've removed most of the clamps, although I have left some on the curved corners because I don't want to risk that springing out. I will leave those overnight. So I won't be able to get a huge amount extra done today, but I can get a few more pieces done. Another thing I've been working on periodically over the course of the day is the bump out section that will ultimately provide somewhere for the passenger station. Here it is. I'm also going to install that. Well, here it is clamped in place. I'm not going to permanently glue it. I'm just going to screw it from behind so that if the client decides that the full width aisle is worth more than having somewhere for the station building, then he can just get rid of it quite easily. All he'll need to do is back out 6 screws and patch up the fascia. Here it is in context. It takes 4 1/4 inches off the width of the aisle just locally. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's right in the middle of the yard and most of the operator action is going to be at the 2 ends. I know I had a similar arrangement on my last railroad in Marquette, Michigan, and I didn't even notice the bump out because I'm always standing far enough away from the fascia that I just walk past it without even having to go around. Well, that is 3 more sections installed. and pretty much all my clamps used up. I could go to the longer ones, but I don't like doing that because they block the aisle and I'm just like to walk into them and hurt myself. So I'm going to leave it there for the day. I think I've had a good day's progress. Well over 100 feet of fascia installed today. I'm just going to sign off till tomorrow and I'll see you then. It is Friday morning, and if I make as much progress today on the fascia as I did yesterday, then I should get it finished, or at least get it all installed. It's a lot more to finishing. Yesterday I did the whole length of the Hades staging yard, most of the middle staging, and I got this corner in on all 3 levels. I still have the whole of the harbour run and 2 more pieces at the end of the main staging and 2 more in this corner. I already have the 2 for the main staging cut, so I'm going to install those first. After finishing the main staging yard at the far end, I decided to come back and get this corner in. Main reason for that being that I want to leave the clamps on the corner, on the curved part, for several hours. So I want those to be on there pretty much all day before I take them off to spackle, because I'm hoping to get to the spackling stage this evening. Everywhere else the clamps can come off after an hour or so, but on the curve I want them there all day. So that's why I decided to do that next. Anyway, with that corner completed, all I have left to do is the harbour area and the end of the peninsula. But for the same reasons that I just mentioned, I think it is prudent to go around the end of the peninsula before going back to the harbour section. So I'm going to do that next. Well, that is the end of the peninsula done. It was 2 pieces totaling just over 15 feet, all the way around one frame. I've also got another 16 feet down the harbour area on the upper level. And you know what I'm about to say next. Yes, that's right, I am once again out of clamps. So I get to go inside now, work on a layout design for a bit, and then I'll come back out and recycle them, and I can do a bit more. Well, I have removed some of the clamps in this area. I've left enough just to ensure that the fascia holds its curve, basically about every second one, and making sure that there is one at the end of the curve where it becomes straight, because that is where it is most likely to want to spring out. I've also recycled the clamps that were along the straight area, and I've managed to get all the way to the end of the room, at least on the outside of the bend anyway. Past the yard and around part way over the desk. I still have about 20 feet or so to go, but as before, you know exactly what I'm going to say next. I am out of clamps. So I'm just going to go in now, take a nice long lunch break, and then when I come back out, I'll be able to recycle most of these and move on to the end. Well, after taking about an hour's lunch, I have now removed most of the clamps from this last area. I've just left a few on the sharply curved areas in the corners. I'm going to leave those for a little bit longer. I've just got about 20 feet more of low fascia to go. It's all the harbour, so it's all 2-inch wide strips. First thing I'm going to do is get the belt sander and take this corner off, which is sticking out proud, and there's also some glue squeeze out along there as well, which I need to remove before I can install fascia. Well, I don't know how I managed to overestimate the length so badly. It was actually between 13 and 14 feet, but it's now on. I only just had enough clamps to get it in place though. But now all the fascia is installed, except for a little piece over the far side by the engine terminal, which has to have a control panel built into it. Now, I don't really feel like doing that now. I'm going to leave all these clamps on for most of the afternoon, and then I'll come back out again later, and I can start spackling the imperfections. well, that seems like a pretty good place to break the video for this week. Next week I will continue where I left off. I will spackle all the imperfections, get it painted, and get all the fascia mounted controls installed. And I hope to see you back here for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.